You're now live on YouTube.
Thank you very much. So, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this evening's scrutiny meeting, and welcome to any of those of you who have joined us on YouTube as well. Let's kick off with, are there any substitutes nominated for this meeting, please? And are there any apologies?
Right, yeah, there are, Chair. Councillor Sutherland has sent their apologies, and Councillor Barnes is substituting.
Thank you. So that's Councillor Sutherland's apologies and Councillor Barnes' substitute. That's the only differences, is it? Sorry, you broke up initially, for me anyway.
Yeah, I think that's right, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Okay, so members' interest, just to remind members of the need to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or other interests that they may have in relation to the items included on this agenda. Please declare them now or as and when they become appropriate. Any to declare at this time? I'll take silence as no. Thank you very much. Admission to the public. It's not recommended that the public be excluded from the meeting for consideration of the items of business on this agenda. So you're welcome to listen in and think what you think of what we have to say. Let's start with the main agenda, that of the minutes of the previous meeting on the 8th of September. Does anybody have any queries, comments or questions to make on those minutes? Bob, I see you raise your hand there.
I only just had a chance to read them. I'm not criticising, but they came very late to us. But just the last minute, number 24. It said we're talking about further discussions on the work programme. Just that issue. And I made a note of what the issue was now, but I thought we'd agreed it. It says as though we're still having at the meeting we're having discussions, and I think perhaps it just that we have agreed on that issue now. Yes,
we did agree. Can we alter that one, please?
I don't know if you have to alter it or not, but I'm just making sure. Yeah, it was necessary.
Yes.
Excuse me, Chair. I just had a technical problem. I'm sorry. What are we saying? I missed it.
Perhaps Bob could repeat. He had a query on the minute in the last meeting.
Sorry, we're always trying to juggle a lot of things when you're on Modern Gov and everything else. And I've lost the minutes now, so I just read them quickly before the meeting. But it just said ongoing discussions, which I think are now being clarified on that point.
Okay.
On the work programme point, on item 24 on the minutes.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, right. Sorry, we're still on the minutes. That's okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or questions on the minutes, please, from anybody? Or can we accept those and move on? Can't see anybody with a hand raised, apart from Bob, who hasn't lowered his hand.
I'm going to do that now, Chair.
Very easily done. Very easily done. So, thank you. Would somebody like to propose those minutes? And second that, thank you, Bob. Seconding, Councillor Lee, thank you. All those in favour? Great, we accept those minutes, thank you very much. The main substantive item on the agenda, Digital Council, the future of meetings and hybrid approach. I think that, Craig Tumoulding, you're going to give us the key points on this one for us, please.
Yep, certainly. Good evening, members, colleagues. I'll just sort of briefly take you through the sort of main context of the paper, sort of a bit of context of the journey where we've been, looking at some of the main challenges across officers, members and sort of partner organisations, and some of the work that's currently ongoing. So it'd be a provision of an update for yourselves. So sort of prior to the pandemic, the council meetings were predominantly face-to-face in terms of officer discussions and collaboration, but obviously March 2020, that landscape changed at a kind of pace that we've never really seen before. So, digital transformation happened really, really quickly. The organisation, all our partners sort of responded very positively with a willingness to adapt and transform. And I think, the fact that we're all here working with this and ModGov, I've noted some of the challenges that have been mentioned tonight, is sort of testament to that. So what we did at that time was do a real rapid review of all our kind of collaboration software, looking at how we can get people connected really quickly. That saw us setting up Zoom for democratic services and the members, and that allowed the sort of democratic process to sort of be resurrected. And it's that kind of real fast-paced adoption that members and colleagues and support services did that got us to the position where Calderdale was one of the first authorities in West Yorkshire to sort of get its democratic process back up and running via virtual means. So again, testament to how everyone's really pulled together to kind of make that happen and shows where we are today. Looking at for officers and members and our sort of partner organisations, be that ward forums, community engagement, town forums, we've had a kind of a much different kind of exercise across the board. So for officers, we rolled out Office 365 at a real pace. That was already procured and was due to be rolled out later in 2020, but obviously due to the pandemic and the need for effective communication and collaboration, we moved that forward at pace to make sure it met everybody's needs. And again, that was adopted very quickly by many members, but also by our officers. And we've got some statistics within that report. I won't go through all them. I'll leave them to sort of to review. But there was some real positive adoption, and lots of people were getting back to their meetings, be it not just for business critical discussions, but also for that well-being. There's that underpinning that people were separated and they also need to talk to the team. So technology really does play one of the parts of that well-being discussion. Obviously, there are many of the facets to that. Also, the technology adaptation of the reduction of the amount of officer travel, nationally, locally, etc. Obviously plays a part in our climate emergency. And again, we've got some statistics within there about the significant reduction in the amount of printing the council now does by that through virtual meetings, sharing screens, not having to go through reports. And again, in terms of ModGov, that's a way of delivering much less paper and delivering your information via sort of digital means within a sort of virtual environment as well. So huge amounts of sort of progress in that respect. The main challenge now is we've got some much more complex kind of nature. So we're in that kind of recovery phase. We've gone from that where that response was to get us back collaborating, get us back to democratic process. In this kind of recovery, we've got all kinds of different sort of operating models. So we've got office accommodation strategy, we've got well-being, but also we've got the underpinning kind of legislation around the democratic process, which is now sort of bringing the hybrid approach to meetings to the forefront. So this sort of paper is really where we're trying to go. It's not just about the legislation. It's not just about what officer needs. It's not just about the members. It's really providing the right technology to be as flexible as we need to be. We may go through whatever happens in the next X number of months, what we're going to be doing for the next 3 to 4 years. We want to make sure the technology is flexible enough to adapt to any situation we've got. So we're not shoehorning it to one kind of process. So in terms of officer meetings, this has been relatively simple. What we've done is set up a Microsoft Teams presence, because Microsoft Teams is the council's default collaboration software. A presence has been put in a number of key rooms within buildings, so Town Hall, Mulcher House and Princess buildings. That is basically where a number of people that may be face-to-face, maybe in a room, but we've also got is the screens, microphone and audio all in one place within that room, which allows remote participants to come in. So again, you could be in the town hall, for example, in this meeting, and other people could be joining, but it's a very, very simple approach. There's no fancy cameras. It's one camera which views a table and allows other people to join virtually or in that face-to-face environment. So that was a relatively simple, almost standard approach to officer hybrid meetings. So that's already been installed in those buildings. So it's in the process of room B and D, I believe, in the town hall, but we've also got that installed within Mulcher House and key rooms within Princess buildings. So again, that was relatively simple. Member meetings, obviously we understand there's a much more complex nature to this. We've also got the back sort of stop of where we were. We used to have the live stream of meetings, so the public eye function where you would have the microphones, you would have the cameras, which would focus on individuals that will be talking at that point. That exists, that's still there, that's all still usable. But in terms of that hybrid approach where we've got some people, perhaps some members face to face, and we want some members coming in from a remote location, be it home or an alternative office, we've got to bring them two elements together. So what we're doing at the moment, we had a meeting with our public eye supplier last week to see how they're doing that and working with other organisations to deliver that approach. We've kind of come to the conclusion that that is all doable, with a focus on room D, because room B, should I say, because within that you would have the existing platform, but you'd also have another screen which would show those remote participants. Within the council chamber, of course, that's a slightly different nature because it's a large room. If you need to see remote participants, that will need screens. We've got the listed building status of the council chamber. So there is a site visit happening next week to really understand what's needed in terms of equipment and what is actually feasible and acceptable within terms of conservation of the room as well. So Thursday next week, we have a meeting, a site survey, which will tell us what we would need to do in order to deliver a hybrid meeting approach within the council chamber. So that would be existing public eye cameras focusing on individuals as they speak, a view of the whole room, but also the remote participation of other members of the public, which would be visible on screen, but also visible to the chairs as well. So that is still a work in progress, but really it's a case of now really understanding how we'd actually put that within the council chamber. But we're quite comfortable that that approach will be feasible within room B. Moving on towards community meetings, again, there's a range of different complexities with community meetings. So what we have is we have ward forums. So again, is that face to face? Is that going to be a mixture of a hybrid participation? We have town boards, which have similar kind of challenges in terms of remote participation, document management, etc. So we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes trying to really understand the actual requirements. So in terms of ward forums and the community engagement, there is a wider piece of work going on in the organisation about how we do that future engagement. So before we start looking at what the technology solution is, we're very keen we understand what the actual requirements are. Again, we want the end user to inform what's needed, and that in turn informs the technology. Let's not choose a technology and then decide what the problem is. So we're going to be engaging with all the appropriate colleagues with regards to that wider sort of public engagement review, so we can slot into that and apply the right technology at the right time. In terms of town boards, we're bringing up a proposal that we can take to town boards, because it's not just about the remote participation of town boards. They've got a need for document management across organisations. And with Microsoft Teams, that would actually probably be their best fit. And again, the North Halifax Partnership, they engaged with Calderdale previously because they had a similar need and a similar challenge. A proposal was made to them on how they would deliver that. It's not something that's delivered by Calderdale. We're recommending a solution that would probably be delivered by the external partners themselves, purely because of technical and security reasons. We would not be able to host that for them. However, we will be putting a proposal together so we can feed that back to town boards and get the feedback accordingly. So again, there's three different real streams to this. Like we said, the members, the officers and partners, all with their different kind of complexities and different needs and challenges. The officer one's kind of pretty standard, and used by different organisations. That's been simple to apply. The member one, we're probably just looking at what the deliverables are in a site survey at the town hall next week. And then we're proposing and working with partners to try and deliver solutions for them. So it is still a work in progress in terms of scrutiny, but hopefully that kind of gives you a flavour of the work involved and some of that work and where we're currently going with that. So I'll be happy, obviously, to take questions.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks for a clear outline of the report. Congratulations also to you and your team on the speed of response. Impressive that we get there one of the first authorities to get back up and running using the developments to IT. And clearly there are some positive spin-offs to this change in the way that we operate as a company, not least in terms of the environment associated with all of that. So that there's some good stuff there. Just opening up there, I've got a couple of hands already raised. Megan, then Susan.
Thank you, Ashley. Right, but very quickly, I think I have lost track of what we're doing. Every time I come near a screen or a keyboard, we've changed something and are looking at it another way. And it started out being okay, but you know, some of us are a bit old and some of us understand all the technology with things. And I mean, the bit tonight, I'm not blaming you, Craig, at all. But, you know, we've talked about having this in Princess Building, this in Nolan, this there. Why are we bothering having a meeting if you've already decided? Not meaning you. Why are we having a meeting if people have already decided? And so, you know, there just doesn't seem any point.
So my role there is to deliver technology that will be flexible enough for a range of different situations, depending on the policy that will be applied by senior managers and members. So if meetings were happening face to face, I want to make sure that the technology to stream it as we did before is there. If policy dictates that will be in the office, but some people will enter remotely, I want to make sure the technology is there to support that. So there could be a range of different policy decisions. There could be a range of different scenarios over the next 12 months. To me, this is about making sure that technology supports any of these different scenarios to make sure that, one, the democratic process can carry on. You know, we're keen, as we've said, you know, we're quite positive in that response. We want to make sure we can positively respond in the future. So I wouldn't say the decisions are made, but we're looking at what technology provides the most flexibility to deliver what may or even may not happen.
So can we say then, Craig, that we can do a sort of, as members here, can we do a pick and mix in relation to the options which you've provided and choose the most appropriate option that we feel is right for us on our type of meeting? Is that what you're really saying? And does that answer your query, Megan?
Yeah, it does really. It's just I've got this thing at the moment about being left behind by different things in the council, and you know, no individuals hold. But I don't understand why we sit at a meeting like we discuss what we're discussing. But you know, it's already. I'm sorry, Craig, but it's already there. So what the dickens are we doing it for? But I'll leave it at that now, please.
Okay, thanks, Megan. Susan, I think you were next.
Okay, big sigh, because to be honest with you, I think Megan has a point here. I think it was perhaps naive of us to think that, you know, once things started to get relatively back to normal, that the default position, my understanding was that the default position would be that members would actually attend meetings unless they were unable to do so, in which case we would be able to offer them a hybrid solution. Now that seems to have fundamentally changed without any consultation with elected members. We had a meeting in July and we made it absolutely clear, the chairs and deputy chairs of Scrutiny, we made it absolutely clear that we wanted, as far as we possibly could, to have a return to face-to-face meetings. It's now October. What I'm not hearing is any timescale here. Seems to me that the current default could go on possibly for another year. while the various things are tweaked and the technology is sorted out. Why? Well, this is a very simple question. We've got I've counted, we've got 7 councillors here. Now, if we've got 7 councillors who want to meet face to face and the officers want to meet us remotely, okay, but why can't we do that now? I've just come back from Labour Party conference. We had a conference of several thousand people. I attended probably 25 fringe meetings. They were all face to face. As far as I'm aware, I do know people on the National Executive Committee. As far as I'm aware, there's been no major event or situation because of that. We're asking for something much more modest, or at least I am. I can't speak for the board. I'm asking, why can't the members, the elected members, meet in person? And if the officers want to join in, and I quite understand that, join in remotely, live stream it. Why can't we do that now? And the other point I want to make is, as far as the community forums go, the town forums, we were given no consultation at all on that. That we were just told, I asked repeatedly, I asked our neighbourhood officer why we couldn't have the Tomodden community forum at the town hall again, because frankly that the town council in Tomodden Town Council have been meeting back at the town hall for months. We get a very low attendance in Tomodden anyway. It's normally about 15 people. That could have been perfectly safely in the council chamber, or indeed in the newly refurbished town hall. And yet this has been foisted on us with no consultation. And you know what's happened? I don't know. I understand it might be different in other areas. I think the turnout at the last online Tomodden Town Board was about 3 people, 3 members of the public. Now, we used to get about 15, and that was pretty bad. But the people used to come to the town, the community forum, tended to be older. They're not into online meetings and stuff. So this is where we are. So I want to know what kind of timescale you're talking about. I want to know why the thoughts of elected members are not being taken into consideration. And it seems to me that the options, which seem quite complex. And finally, I promise, I'm really, really concerned. There's an issue here of democracy. We're going to get. I mean, I assumed that we would go back to the council chamber once the situation changed significantly. We're not there yet. I know that, but the Victoria Hall is obviously totally unsuitable. So we need to find a venue that works. Yeah, I mean, I think I've probably repeated myself a bit there, but yeah, I'm really concerned about democracy. We're going to have officers in one place, some councillors there, some councillors not. How on earth is that going to work? I can't see how that's going to work. So those are my concerns.
Thank you, Susan. Certainly part of my concern was there's a reference in item 3.2 under members' meetings, which says feedback from members via the portfolio lead for resources has defined the solution. I don't remember being involved in that, apart from what Susan was saying in terms of us expressing some views on that. We are talking democracy here. Ian, would it be appropriate perhaps for yourself to respond to this? I will come to other people who have got questions, but I just wonder whether it's fair throwing all these specific comments at Craig when it's a democratic issue, perhaps. Ian, do you feel you have something to add to that discussion?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I think the situation that was described by Craig and also by Councillor Press is a situation that we are aiming to get as a resolution of the very many different views that would be expressed about the way in which meetings are held within the council. There are those meetings that we have to hold as physical meetings, the decision-making meetings under the Local Government Act. We've no option about those. That's Cabinet and Council, and to an extent planning. The other meetings, what we're looking to achieve is the ability for there to be participation by members of the public, by our partners and by officers in a way that allows for that meeting to be as productive as possible. And an example of a meeting that would not have been as productive as possible if it had been held as a physical meeting was the Children and Young People Scrutiny Board that took place at the end of last week. Partner organisations at this point in time with unfortunately, infection rates continuing to be as high as they are, indicated that they would not attend if that meeting was a physical meeting. So it reverted back to a virtual meeting, and people were able to participate in a way that allowed for the meeting to deal with the business that it needed to deal with. What we want to get to, as Craig has described, is the ability for those members who wish to attend physically to be able to do so, but for anybody else who wishes to participate, to be able to do so through the technological solution that we will deliver. Now, the meeting that we had with Public Eye last week described the possible technological solution for Room B as being one that could be delivered fairly quickly. We'll know more about that when we have the site visit next Thursday, but that possibly could be a matter of weeks. The solution for the council chamber might take a little bit longer because of the need for an assessment of the sighting of the screens that will be required in that room. So Room B hopefully will come on stream through the Public Eye process within a matter of weeks if there is a productive site visit next week. The other point that's been raised about the need for there to be a return to face-to-face meetings. We are looking to do that when possible, and we have done that obviously with those meetings that we have to do. I recognise that the council meeting in the Victoria Hall needs to have a better sound system, and at the group leaders meeting this morning, I indicated that we would look into that to try and make sure that if that's the sighting of the next meeting in November, there is a better sound system available to members and for those who then wish to watch it through the streaming process that we have to put in place. We're trying to achieve and recognize that the landscape within which we operate as a democratic council has changed. We have to have the ability to provide solutions for the input from people who wish to contribute to that democratic process to be available in as wide a range of options as possible. And the hybrid solution is a situation that we want to explore and want to implement. And that isn't to take away the fact that there will need to be physical meetings and those members who wish to attend, but we also need to have the ability to broaden and widen the ability for people to contribute in the ways that they've become used to over the last 18 months, 2 years. Chair, I hope that assists.
Thank you, Ian. I've got a number of people who would like to comment. Susan, we may well come back to you if we need to, but Councillor Lee, Stephen, you've had your hand up for some time. Would you like to make a comment?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I did attend the leaders meeting this morning, so I have already discussed this today somewhat. I think that good points are made by Megan and by Councillor Press here. I think there's a wide range of opinions across the councillors, just in my group, and I'm sure in other groups across the council. Some feel very strongly that every meeting should be in person. Others see the use of technology as a real technological boon. But I do think in order to get through this difficult situation, which has not gone away, the hybrid solution that's being proposed here is essential. And I think it needs to be implemented at the earliest opportunity so that until everything settles down, we have the ability to satisfy most people, i.e. to be able to stay at home if they're still concerned about COVID and meeting people, or to go and attend in public because that's what democracy and the politics we've known thus far has been all about. So I do think that that's very important. And in the present circumstances where we're still restricted as to the use of space. Although I understand that Ian Hughes will be looking at that to see whether that some relaxation could be made on the rules about the capacity of the various rooms at the town hall. The main reason that I believe that the hybrid solution is essential is where the public need to be involved. On a number of these meetings, there are very, very strong feelings that the public have about things that are happening, and we do need to involve them. We need our scrutiny panels to take these decisions to the public so they can have the say and an input into what's happening. So for transparent democracy, I think we need to have the hybrid solution to allow members of the public to come into the town hall somehow and get involved more readily in person at the town hall in the decision-making processes. So it's not ideal. Whatever the officers come up with will suit some people more than others. I think that eventually, I do believe we'll be able to get back to having meetings where we feel that they're really necessary. And we'll be having some meetings electronically where it's a more closed meeting and it's very convenient to get together on Zoom. So I do agree with the hybrid solution. There's just a couple of questions for Craig on the facts and figures on reference to on the journey. The first one is, we're congratulating ourselves for saving 22% electric over the estate, somewhere in there. And that's very good. But my question is on that one, are any costs being incurred for energy usage expended by council employees working from home? Does that translate to any allowances or costs to the council to counteract the saving on electricity on the estate? And the other one is one of the claims, I think I've raised this in another meeting somewhere, but one of the claims is that in 6 months, 41,000 team meetings were organised. And just doing some simple maths on that, I don't think that that's a necessarily accurate statement. Because 41,000 over 6 months is about 7,000 a month, give or take, which is 1,750 meetings a week, which is 350 every working day. I don't think that that's the case. I think that the 41,000 referred to is a number of attendees at Teams meetings that have been organised. And what I'm saying here is if we're claiming things, let's do the research and say what they are correctly, rather than something that doesn't sound to me to be even possibly correct. So apart from those 2 points, I welcome the report and the plans that we've heard about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. I've got a number of people stacking up here, but Craig, do you want to come back on those data requests? Comments?
So the figures came from the Microsoft Office 365 reporting stats, but take on board what Councillor Lee says. I will be going back to just double check that statistic to make sure it's meetings or versus participants. We are looking to get some robust reporting on this so we can actually see the kind of adoption figures as we sort of progress through the journey. So I will double check that to make sure those figures are correct, and if they're not, then I'll certainly make sure that in the future we've got that more nailed down.
Good, thanks, Craig. Coming back to the list, Bob, I think you've been waiting a long time, as have a number of others, but you were next on the list, I think.
That's better. Yes, I think my question or comment was probably now being covered. I was a little concerned in understanding just how the hybrid meetings were going to happen. And I'm probably speaking personally now, but I think need clarification because members have different needs and different commitments, and it is important to have a choice, if that's the right word, to be able to attend still virtually through a hybrid meeting or face to face, if I'm understanding it correctly, if there be that choice offered, because it is my personal circumstances and commitments mean that I need to be clear in advance on a meeting that you can do that and you can have a choice about that.
Yeah, I think
Does
the
that
choice.
make sense?
Yeah, I think the choice is an important one there, Bob, isn't it? Hence my early comment in relation to, well, is this a pick and mix situation? So we've got some options.
Yes.
Choose the one that's most appropriate. Mike Barnes, Councillor Barnes. Sorry.
I think for those of a certain age, I think I'm the David Fairclough of Calderdale politics. Rarely start, but always come off the bench as the super sub. I think there's a couple of things that I just want to pick on. I think what we've seen over the last 20 months is an acceleration of what was probably going to happen over 5 to 10 year period of moving away from moving into more hybrid activities. In answer to Councillor Lee's question, individuals can offset their increased costs or increased costs against their tax bill. So in other words, if you work from home, you are allowed to offset some of your utility costs against your taxable income. So that's a well-trodden path over a number of years. I used to work from home all the time and was able to do that. I suppose my issue is I think it's right that we have hybrid, or it's right that we have flexibility, and I think the officers have done a really good job so far in getting us into that situation. My only concern is going forward is whether that's what rules, what procedures we have in place to stop that being abused. I think there are certain times, particularly in scrutiny, when actually it is nice to see people, especially when we're asking questions of individuals. It's good to see them there and get their responses face to face. And I just concern that long term, and I am talking long term here, that ability of individuals not to appear in front of scrutiny and be asked at sometimes searching questions is not taken away by people abusing the system. So it's really making sure that we have appropriate rules and procedures in place to prevent that happening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Porritt, Victoria, you've had your hand up for a while as well, please.
Oh, only a little while, you know me, I'll come in late, listen to everybody else, so what you've all got to say. I've been really interested actually in the discussion this evening and the way that different viewpoints are coming across from, I think, different perspectives. I don't want to sort of chuck age at it because I think that's kind of unhelpful as a catch-all, but the world of work is clearly changing significantly, and like Councillor Barnes just said, the fact that this has happened so quickly is probably like just an acceleration of what was due to happen. Certainly my husband has a job that he's been in for a year and he hasn't physically met any of his colleagues. He's been working from home the entire time and is actually more than happy to continue to do so. I think the other thing that possibly hasn't been raised this evening is the issue of accessibility for various different reasons, that a digital and a hybrid way of working offers different people access to the democratic process who might have found it difficult to access an evening meeting out of the home or a meeting in a building that's not the easiest to get around, or in fact just a space that feels quite intimidating to access. You know, councillors, the town hall, those aren't things that feel immediately accessible to the population as a whole, I would have thought. And I'd like to think that the more we can open this up and the more that we can make hybrid our default, and the more that we invite people to engage in however they're able to engage, that we could actually, as time goes on, open up democracy more. I know that we've got significant issues at the moment with things like ward forums where we're not getting again, talking about the sort of the age of the participants, we're not getting people coming along because it tends to be an older cohort. But I think hybrid as a way of increasing accessibility is something that I would definitely like to see how much that can be explored, and looking at it in terms of, so if people need access because they've got difficulty with hearing or difficulty with mobility, those sorts of issues as well, how we can increase our accessibility across the board and really think about all of those surrounding issues to bring on board our whole population into this democratic process. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. I've got on my list Councillor Scullion and Councillor Taylor. Ian, you've had your hand up. Do you need to come in response to something, or do you want to round up at the end on your...
I can pick up the points at the end, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Scullion, Jane, I think you've got your hand up as well on this one.
Thank you. I'm still getting used to decimalisation, actually. Never mind all the new apps. I was working as a barmaid when we went decimal, and it was very hard. Councillor Dacre, as you know, is unable to attend the meeting tonight, and I'm taking furious notes on her behalf as portfolio holder. I just wanted to set the context for the moment in terms of what Councillor Lee said, which is absolutely right, that COVID unfortunately hasn't gone away. I just wanted to update the Scrutiny Board in terms of where we are as of today. We're actually the highest COVID rate in West Yorkshire. We're the third highest in Yorkshire and Humberside, and we're the 6th highest in England as a whole. We're back to last March's figures, and currently we're standing at 567 per 100,000. You know, that ratio that we've used to just keep an eye. I remember us being very worried back when it went up from 38 per 100,000 to 42. So you can understand that 567 per 100,000 is very high. However, of course, mostly that's in the younger generation. But the 100 per 100,000 rate for secondary schools at the moment is 2,820, which is causing a real problem for our secondary schools. So it's 820,000 per 100,000. And it's also high in primaries. So that's leading to one of the highest 60 plus rates in the country. Now, of course, the vaccinations have helped tremendously in terms of that translating into severe illness or hospitalisation. But of course, just those figures that I read to you are already putting pressure on the hospitals in terms of COVID admissions, and particularly in the ICU. So Councillor Lee's absolutely right. This hasn't gone away yet, and we are in a transition period. We're not able to sort of move to the future that we'd like to see. And I think a number of people have referred to the fact that probably in terms of efficient working, we probably won't necessarily go back to every single meeting being in person. But I just wanted to make sure that the Scrutiny Board knew exactly the context really here in Calderdale at this precise moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Yes, I think we do need to bear in mind the COVID situation and the way it is not heading in the right direction at the moment, which is very, very unfortunate. Councillor Taylor, Roger, you've been patient. Next up.
Thank you. Well, this wonderful hybrid modern technology, I'm actually on my personal computer because for some reason my council laptop refused to let me in. It wanted me to open some software and it wouldn't let me through, and round I went. So I came on this and I noticed this was alive, and then I actually got on the council one, but I think Janet Sparks thought, well, you can only have one, you can't have two. So it's taken me nearly 20 minutes to get to this meeting. So this modern technology is fine, so long as it works. Couple of quick points. I'm a great believer in getting back to normal. The commercial world is doing it. It's a virus. You talk about numbers of cases catching it, but what are we talking about? Deaths. What have we had the vaccines for? We had the Nightingale hospitals. I think we had 30 odd beds occupied in the London one. The others are just in mothballs. We were going to use the Shea as an emergency morgue. It didn't happen. So the other thing is, don't go for your new driving license or passport unless you give it a good few months in advance, because everybody's working from home and nobody's in the office producing these things. I get most complaints about recycling. We're bound to. People working from home, the cans are going in the Hessian sack, they're not going in the bins around the place. I get that. But the other one I have is when people come to me and say, I've tried customer first, I've tried this, I've sent emails, and I just want to see somebody in the flesh. And I fully understand that. There's no way my mother could use one of these things. When she saw my computer, she said, oh, see, you've got a typewriter with a TV screen above it. So working from home is great for those who are doing it. But, you know, the plumber can't work from home, the electrician can't work from home, the bus driver can't work from home, and many, many other people can't work from home. And I think we've got to get back to some face-to-face, and sooner rather than later. Yes, we obviously need to take care about how we do it, but I really do feel that hiding under those bed covers forever and ever and ever for a virus that will never go away. You can't kill a virus. How long have we been fighting influenza? And influenza, by the way, is a coronavirus. I had my jab on Friday. That must be by 26th or 27th. So it's still with us, as will COVID will be still with us this time next year. But we can't just keep locking half the country down with the other half trying to cover for it. So I would say, yes, I have no problems with these meetings and hybrid working within reason. There are times when I think we need face-to-face, and certainly for those without access, the public I'm thinking of, without access to technology to do it. I think if we bear that in mind, and I'm pretty sure that Craig has all those on board anyway, but I just thought I'd make those points because that's, like I say, it's taken me 20 minutes to get on here, and now I'm on my own personal computer to do it. So, you know, that to me says it all. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Points noted. Jacob, Councillor Cook, you've had your hand up for a while as well. Jacob, do you want to put your 10 penneth in?
Sorry, just bear me just a minute.
Yeah, we did just hear you. You're back on mute, I think, by the look of the red blob.
Bottom left-hand corner should be on your desktop, should be a little microphone with a red line through it.
Yeah, so can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. Yeah, thanks a lot. I just wanted to ask about the use of the hybrid system. Would it be used just for councillor meetings, so for members like ourselves, or would it be used? What I mean is, would councillors like our, because Councillor Evans has said it can be used like a pick and mix, so we can sort of decide how we want to attend official members' meetings. You know, we could be there in person, or we could use the hybrid option. I just wanted to clarify whether that would be the case, or whether or not it would just be used for members of the public to access the meetings that members are involved with. I just wanted to get some clarity on that, because I think if it's for ourselves to sort of a pick and mix approach, I think that shouldn't be the case. I think as elected members of the council, we need to attend in person as many meetings as, in fact, you know, obviously, if we're allowed to, we need to attend in person, and I think that would be better. I think members of the public expect that, and they expect us to be there in person, debating and doing what we're supposed to do. And I don't think the hybrid option would be very good for us to have an option to say, well, you know, I don't want to attend that meeting tonight, I want to go on the hybrid approach, when there are other councillors who are there in person. You know, I think we either all need to be there in person or all needs to be digital. I don't think the hybrid approach will work very well in that respect. If it's for getting members of the public access, fully with that, you know, because that will open up democracy and will help, you know, help democracy, help people to have access to our meetings. That's not a problem. So I just wanted to get some clarity on that first. And I just wanted to mention, I know we've had some figures of 41,000 Teams meetings, and I know that is officers who've had those meetings, council staff. But I wanted to ask the question, is that then a sign of a lack of productivity? Because we always hear, you know, so many meetings, a lot of them are a waste of time. And does it make it too easy to have meetings using this digital format, because it's so easy to arrange a meeting, so easy to have it on Zoom. Are the council staff spending too much time in meetings and too much time, chatting away instead of actually getting on with the work? So I just wanted to put that out there and see if we can get a response on that.
I'll come in if that's okay, Chair.
Hey, please do.
So in terms of your first point, Councillor Cook, in terms of when we sort of pick a mix, I mean, the technology will be in the room as it almost was before, if you like. So if policy and the organisation dictates that everything became face-to-face, the meeting rooms will be as they were before, with the live stream to the council with your microphones, etc. It would be as was before that. Nothing's moved, nothing's gone, that's still there. If everything went back to needing to be virtual through policy or organisational decision, then we would be as we are now. If we went to that hybrid approach, is that case of the technology in the room? We're not going to say we have that technology tonight, that technology. It's almost, you would have the meeting and the meeting organiser would just have send invites out like they do now. So it's not choosing technology, it's really choosing who's invited to the meeting virtually and who's face to face. So you could all be in the room and two people, members of the public, come in via an invite from Democratic Services. So really, it's not so much pick and mix. The technology's there. It's really how the policy kind of dictates how these meetings will happen. So there's no kind of change of technology, if you like. It's quite hard to explain in that sense, but the technology is just there. How it's used is down to really the policy decision of face-to-face meetings, virtual, or just bringing in members of the public with full member capacity or half and half. So the technology is as flexible to cover every situation. How them situations are dictated, that will come down to either member policy, organisational policy, and I can't really comment on that part. I wouldn't be part of that decision making.
I accept that. So all I would say on it being based on policy is that we need to make the policy. The people who are involved in the meetings need to make those decisions, I think. I accept. I think it's important that the options are there. And I think we as members, as officers, as members of the public even need to be allowed and enabled to make the choice. And once the systems are there available for us, we need to be able to access them and use them and make our choice of the combination of those things. Sorry, that's me making comments there. Councillor Lee, Stephen, you've had your hand up for a while as well on this one.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a small point arising from what happened earlier. First of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Barnes for his kind attempt to answer a question I asked to somebody else. And, I'm sure it was well intentioned. And just to let him know that I am aware of tax mitigation for individuals. Thank you for that. But my question was not that. My question was whether the council is making any payments to employees for using their homes, because if so, savings made on electricity, predictable savings made on electricity in the council estates may actually be swallowed up by additional costs for using electricity at employees' homes. I don't know the answer genuinely, but I would like to. Thank you.
Thanks for the clarification. Is anybody able to answer that clarified question at this point in time, or do we need to wait for an answer?
I think we can probably bring an answer back in at a later date, but there was some discussion around some of the softer benefits that support that, and I think that was a statement that came probably out maybe 6 months ago from a similar question, so around flexibility of working, etc. So that would have come from HR, so I'm not sure of the detail off the top of my head, but I think a statement has been made around that question previously, so I'm sure that can be sourced.
So if we can just note that in the minutes, then we can seek an answer to it from whoever is the most able to answer it. As far as I can see, there are no other questions, no other hands raised apart from Ian. I think you wanted to come in, sort of pull some things together from your point of view here.
Thank you, Chair. It was just really picking up the questions that were posed, and I think the combination of the contributions made from members demonstrates that there is a great deal of opinion about this, quite rightly, and the approach that we're looking to implement is one that caters for as many of those different options as is possible. The hybrid system tries to allow for the different personal positions that will be taken by members and by our partners about their willingness to attend meetings. And to answer specifically Councillor Bob Metcalfe's point, it won't be a prescriptive position that is taken on attendance at meetings face to face, but I do recognise the point that Councillor Barnes made, that there's going to need to be a set of procedural rules that deal with the way in which we conduct hybrid meetings, and I'm looking at that already, learning from the experiences that we've garnered over the last 18 months from the way that we've held our virtual meetings, which for the most part have worked incredibly well and worked well in governance terms as well. There's been very, very few hitches that we've come across, and those that we have, we will learn from. And in answer to Councillor Cook's point, I do recognise the point that's made about democracy being seen to be happening, but I was slightly puzzled by the fact that he wanted members of members physically in a meeting room, but members of the public could watch them from a virtual perspective. Well, I think we've seen from the numbers of people that we've had watching our meetings that the public is becoming well used to seeing the operation of democracy taking place over screens. And I don't think that they will have too much of an issue of having some members physically in a meeting room with some members of the public physically in a meeting room, but to have other members joining from a remote location. And it isn't just for reasons of COVID. There will be environmental reasons, accessibility issues, disability issues, which we need to recognize will contribute to the discussion that we will be having over the use of the hybrid system to facilitate, wherever possible, as wide a possible contribution from those members of our society who can't find it difficult to travel to meetings for various reasons. We need to accommodate that, and that was something that was being discussed pre-pandemic, and in my opinion, it's a very good byproduct of the fact that we have addressed and adopted the use of virtual technology as quickly as we have. So those are I think, Chair, the responses to the questions that were posed. On the payments issue, we will need to make sure that we source the response that has gone out. I would be surprised if there were payments of that type being made, but we'll bring a definitive answer on that.
Thank you, Ian, and thanks for a summary from your point of view there. One question which does relate to finance that I've not heard mentioned, and it's on my little list, is clearly we're doing lots of work on technology and development on technology and so on. I presume there's a cost associated with that. I'm not saying we shouldn't endure that and involve that cost. Is there a cost? If so, how much? And are we getting any support to cover that cost? Craig, are you able to answer that?
Chair, I can deal with that because of the meeting. I briefed group leaders this morning on exactly that. Yes, there is a cost. The estimate for the implementation of the hybrid solution for both the council chamber and room B is in the order of about £30,000. I did mention to group leaders, so I'll mention it in this forum as well.
Thank you.
That as part of the work that we would undertake with Public Eye, they discussed with us the possibility of upgrading the microphone system that operates currently in the council chamber and room B. It's of some vintage. It has caused problems over a number of years now. It's a system that requires an upgrade. Public Eye have indicated that as part of the process of upgrading to the hybrid AV solution, it's called, that we would look to source from them, we could possibly upgrade the microphone system as well. That would raise the cost to about £100,000. But obviously it is to provide a system that needs to be as functional as possible to ensure that we can provide the best access that we possibly can to a system that by definition is going to be providing us with people joining from different locations, and the last thing that we need is to have delay, lag, or sound issues with that. So the indications given this morning from those who were in the meeting was that whilst obviously that is a significant cost, it is one that we need to explore fully and ensure that if it's one that is cost effective to do as we implement the hybrid solution, rather than it being as an add-on, we should certainly explore whether that's a viable opportunity at this point. So we will do that, and obviously ensure that the decision-making process for that is one that's taken through the cabinet, through cabinet briefing if necessary, and if necessary to cabinet itself.
Thank you for that, Ian. I don't think there are any other questions. All I would say, perhaps in summary, unless people do want to make any further points, is that we seem to be now coming back to this expression hybrid, and I think this hybrid system that we've been talking about is probably going to be the way forward. We need to take into account that people should have the choice to which part of that hybrid system they involve themselves in, whether it's face-to-face or whether it's through the IT system. We need to be sure that we are consulting with and listening to people in terms of their preferences and their needs. We need to think in terms of the benefits for those individual people. We need to think about, I think Susan Press said, there are older people. There are also people who don't have the income to cover the IT costs associated with being part of it. So we need to bear that in mind. We need to take into account some people won't be as IT savvy as others, and so on. So we've got to still maintain our awareness of all those particular needs, I think, as an organisation in total. And of course, at the same time, as was mentioned in terms of the COVID information, we are on an upturn, and okay, there's all sorts of discussions, but we do need to take that into account. I am a great believer in the need for people to be able to meet face to face and pick up the vibes, the reactions from people, which you can do. However good the IT system is, certainly at the moment, you can't pick that up. I can't. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. So as soon as we can evolve more face-to-face meetings, the better. And I think we need to be perhaps a little bit more lateral thinking in terms of COVID secure rooms or places in which enable us to do that. We need to pan out and look at options. We tried as a council meeting in the Victoria Hall, and we know that's a problem. We're looking at ways of doing it. But I think one of my little hobby horses is and has been mentioned by other members, is ward forums. We're seeing a significant reduction in people attending ward forums. That's an integral part of democracy, and it's not happening as it should and could do. So I think we've got to look at ways in which we can make that happen more effectively and not rely purely on the IT side of things. That's me making my points anyway at the end of that. Any further points anybody wishes to make on this particular subject? Can't see any hands raised. So,
Chair, you have Councillor Megan Swift.
Sorry, Megan, I'm missing you out again. How dare I? And thank you, Ian. Megan. You're still on mute.
You're on mute.
Unmute.
You're on mute, Megan. That's it. You're off now. Good. Fire away.
I'm off. No, thank you. I'm just saying, I'm playing devil's advocate, they're having both systems. They're coming into meetings and the hybrid one. I accept the hybrid one for people who've got issues and are ill and all that sort of thing. But the rest of us who came on before the pandemic assumed we would be coming to the town hall and not just, oh, it's a bit wet out there, so I'll stay at home and do it on Zoom. So that's another side. I don't know whether I agree with that, but it's something for people to think about.
Thank you, Megan. So I think it remains to be said, thank you to Craig G. Moulding for his input on this and dealing with our questions, and also Ian's support on those details. So thank you very much. We will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is, in fact, we've got a relatively short agenda today, the work programme for the rest of the year, item number 6. I certainly would like to include in this, and I think we need to include in this, discussions in relation to our working group on problem debt. You will have received terms of reference and a proposed format for scrutiny in a day to kick the whole process off. Lauren, Mike, do you want to come in on the general issue of work programme, or do you want to kick off with that particular one? What would you prefer?
Just on the problem debts, thank you, Chair. Lauren circulated the next iteration, if you like, of the terms of reference, and thanks members for all your comments on it. We've tried to build those in. Lauren's working hard at getting a date where as many of the people on the working party can make it, all of them hopefully, but also the people you've asked to see to give evidence, and we're getting a very positive response from the organisations that you did say that you wanted to talk to. So I'm very positive about the way that this is going. Lauren and I have had some initial discussions about the points that is included in the terms of reference, about doing some survey work through SurveyMonkey or another medium, and we're working up some suggestions to put to the members of the board on that, so you can, as the working group, can agree the approach and the sort of questions that might be asked throughout the process. That will give you a real opportunity to get some rich information from individuals who've been affected in this way, I hope, in the way that previous work, for example, on the inequalities coming out of the pandemic done by Place Scrutiny Board achieved that. So we're looking for the working group to meet towards the end of this month, with a view to making some progress and getting a report fairly shortly after that. I know members already who are involved in the working group have been expressing their views and the things they're particularly interested in looking at. And when we get to the evidence receiving discussion in October, I'm sure we'll have a really positive experience. So I don't know whether you want me to pause there on that item, Councillor Evans, before I get on to two other points I wanted to raise on the work programme.
Indeed, and thank you, Mike. I know Councillor Press, Susan, you've got your hand up on this one. Would you like to come in?
Yeah, just a couple of points really. I did ask that we made a slight tweak to the terminology. It kept referring to people with debt problems, which I felt was a bit judgmental and stigmatising people a little bit, because we'd already said that it was about problem debt, so there was no need to keep repeating that. We're fairly clear we're identifying existing strategies for supporting people and so on. There is something else I want to say, and it's a byproduct of a conversation I had yesterday. I help run a food bank in Tomadan, and you don't know who I'm talking about, so I'm not breaching any confidence here, but I was speaking a very distressed woman in her 60s whose husband had died, and she was trying to live on £100 a month, obviously impossible. She had no idea how to access Customer First. She didn't know what it was. She had no idea about universal credit, to which she is entitled, because I went on the website with her. There are so many people out there, and it goes back to what we were saying a minute ago about accessibility. We think everyone's got access to IT. They haven't. Yeah, this wasn't a really elderly woman. In fact, she was the same age as me. Obviously, she is elderly. Yeah. But you know, there are people out there who do not have access to IT, and maybe that needs to be considered as part of, you know, what we're talking about here. I'm looking through, and I can't see anything specifically about this, because the days of having housing offices and council offices and all those things we used to have, that's kind of pretty much gone. I know in Tomodon we're lucky we've got 2 days a week at the library, but she wasn't aware of that. So we need to talk about maybe also raising the visibility of the services that are available and getting the intelligence out there to people. And I know that Sarah and her team have done a lot of work on this when that was part of my portfolio. So can we also think about that as well? I don't think it has to be formally included on the terms of reference, but yeah, we need to think about how we reach people who are not being reached.
Yeah, so I agree in the general principle, Susan. I think the only thing we have to be careful of is that we don't second guess, we don't make decisions at this stage before we do the finding out. But I think it's important that we include the queries, the references that you make. So I'm sure we'll note that, Lauren, Mike, we'll note that. Yes, and Lauren's just put up a chat message saying that she's taken notes on those. Thank you. So thank you for that point. Councillor Taylor, Roger, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, yes. Unfortunately, I have to keep doing this to go to my council laptop because I'm on here over this side of the room on my personal computer.
You're a man of many parts, Roger.
Unfortunately, I do have more than one way through, yes. When plan A is blocked, I go for plan B. No, very briefly, I've just been looking at not so much the terms of reference, which I don't have a problem with, but it's the contributors. I do think it would be a good idea to have someone from the financial sector or the financial, is it standards authority or whatever it's called now, FSA, to actually also be included or have an input into this. I just feel as though it's going to be looking at the victims, which of course, you know, is good, it's honourable, I accept that. But perhaps some questions to the other side saying, well, how come, or how do you get hold of these people, or how do they get hold of you? Is there any way, you know, they could say, have you gone through this, and I just think we're looking at one side of the coin too much here, and we're not considering just how these financial institutions work. Now, maybe because this is about people in problem debt, that may not be what the group wants. Just, I'm doing a Megan, I'm being devil's advocate. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, we've got people like the credit union. We're looking at finances there, the Citizens Advice Bureau, and so on. But yeah, I hear what you say, Roger, and I guess that Lauren will make a note of that as well. Thank you. Councillor Metcalfe, Bob, you've got your hand up as well.
Yes, I have. I don't want to appear negative in what I say, because I think the terms of reference are really, really good on this, and you know, it's good that we're getting started and moving very quickly. But I do have quite a bit of previous experience of being on Scrutiny working parties working team some years ago now. But it's regarding how many organisations and people we involve. Certainly at the start of this, if we want to get some early things moving along, I do have a little concern about we may be overloading this side of it, and we may get too much information and not being able to digest it all in the kind of time scale we're looking at. I know we can do part A and then move on to part B, etc. And so to meet the dates that we've got programmed down here, I think November's a tight timetable anyway, and that I think could go be November/December, because I think we're reporting back to the full board in January. So just a concern, it's really excellent, is this, now we're moving on it, but just concerns that we don't try and take too much on at the early stages and try to, or we'll be just overloaded. I know that how you can get overloaded with information, and it does delay. These things do take longer than you think to get some proper decisions and recommendations made. We don't want to rush things and then regret it later. So just a word of warning on that side of it. I do welcome also Sarah Richardson being and acting as an advisor to us on this as well.
Yeah, I think we need to be aware of that warning and take that warning on board, Bob, because you can get too carried away. And also what we should be doing is to being very precise, talking to these individual groups of people to be sure what we're asking of them, rather than leaving it totally open. But I respect your view on that one very much. Councillor Lee, Stephen Lee, you've got your hand up there.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very encouraged by the progress that we made already. I think there's a genuine feeling across party that we all want to do our best on this. I certainly agree with a number of points Bob Metcalf has just made, and I think when we next meet we should consider that carefully, and perhaps, Mike, when it comes to setting the date for the scrutiny in a day, if one or two of the people that we'd listed can't make it on that day, it won't be necessarily a bad thing. They might have a chance later on, but you know, let's stick with just a few so we're not overwhelmed. I do agree with Bob on that. And finally, I do take some exception to Councillor Press suggesting changing the name of the working group. We had a meeting. Councillor Press chose to be elsewhere.
I didn't say that. I'm sorry, I didn't actually say that.
And that issue was discussed and agreed by the members who had prioritised attendance at the meeting, and the name was agreed to be Problem Debt.
Councillor Lee, I didn't actually say that. I said that the phrase had been repeated over and over again in the terms of reference, and we'd already made the point at the top of the terms of reference. So I think you've misconstrued what I said. I did not say that it should be changed.
I accept that. Councillor Press, I accept that if I misconstrued it. We're all comfy. We're going ahead together with this. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for that clarification. Mike Lodge, Mike L. Do you want to come back on any of those comments or add anything?
No, I don't think so, Chair. We've got, you know, myself and Lauren have made notes of all those, and I think, as members have said, we're all, you know, moving in the same direction, and I'm really looking forward to the, you know, to the session. I think the point is, if we do find that session there are people we haven't seen that we think it'd be absolutely valuable to see, then we can arrange another session. But I do. There is a risk of these things dragging on and on and on, and you don't finish them in 6 months, and then almost the energy saps out of the group. But we've got all the comments that have been made, and the next you'll hear from us, I guess, is from Lauren with a firm date and a firm programme.
Yeah, could I just support that and say, if any of you haven't managed to get back to Lauren with your date preferences, please could you do so ASAP so that we can firm up on that date. So are all board members happy with where we're getting to at the moment in terms of this working group? Nobody else has got any concerns they want to express? Can't see any. Mike, you've got your hand up there. Do you want to carry on with the work programme?
Two very brief points, if I may, Chair. One of the things that I believe you discussed in the past under the work programme item was having a focus on equalities, which is one of the cabinet priorities, which we've picked up in bits, usually through discussions with Jackie Addison about HR issues. But I'd like to suggest that we do that the chair and the deputy chair do a little bit of work, not on addressing this issue, but on doing a bit of agenda planning, so that we work out who are the best people to talk to about these issues, and perhaps try and find a space to take a more thoughtful, wider look at equalities issues perhaps early in the new year. So if that's okay with everybody, myself and Lauren will go ahead and do that bit of work planning. So not doing the work, but doing the planning about how we're going to do the work. So that was the first point to make on
Sorry,
that.
Mike, I think that's really important. I know you've said that Bob and I will sit down with you and go through it. We're not going to be making decisions. We'll be developing the ideas, and we'll bring that back to the board in terms of it. So we're not taking you out of the loop, as it were, but it can be too complicated to involve everybody at this very early stage. And if we come up with the ideas, then we'll pass them to you and run them past you. Sorry, Mike, I thought it was just worth emphasising that.
Okay. And the other thing to mention, Chair, is that members who've been on the board or on other boards actually for a few years will remember about 3 years ago we did a bit of work on the relationship with the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. And one of the recommendations of that piece of work was that we should develop closer links between scrutiny at the West Yorkshire Combined Authority and our own scrutiny functions. Members may well know that scrutiny has been developed at West Yorkshire Combined Authority, and there are now 3 scrutiny boards, one of which the Corporate Scrutiny Committee probably relates to the work of this scrutiny board. The members from Calderdale are we have 2 of them here, Councillor Swift and Councillor Barnes, and the third member from Calderdale is Councillor Robinson. And we're suggesting that we will ask those members, if they're willing, to come to a meeting perhaps early in the new year to talk about the work of that scrutiny board and shared interests between Calderdale and Wicker. I see Councillor Barnes is sort of nodding at that. I can't see Councillor Swift, she's not on my screen. But that was all I had to say about the work programme, other than to say that you look like you've got some fairly substantial discussions in November and December. So I think that they're full and they look like very useful items you've got on the work programme there.
And we've got a little bit of space early in the new year. Therefore, what I would just say generally to board members, if there are sort of any particular issues that you feel that we should be addressing, please, throw them up in the air and we'll talk about them and see how they fit in. Anybody specifically at the moment got any bees in their bonnets? No? Have a think in the meantime. I'm panicking a little bit here because we've had a relatively short agenda and we're in danger of finishing before 8 o'clock on a Wednesday evening, which is a bit shocking all round.
Chair, I'd also like to point out that you're breaking Councillor Bragbrough's 7:30 rules. So I think that should be flagged up to Councillor Bragbrough.
Thank you for that, Councillor Barnes. Any other business?
Well, we'll make up for that in the later meetings this November, December.
Thankfully, I'm only sub for this one.
Yeah. We'll put this in the bank then, this bit, and we'll come back to it later. But thanks for all your contributions, everybody, and I look forward to the next meeting. Thank you and good night.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Chair. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Cheers, Chair.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Yes.